On the day of our engagement, my fiancé spent the entire night away, escorting his drunk ex-girlfriend back to her hotel. At 3 in the morning, he called me. "Let's cancel our wedding. I still can't forget your sister." I replied, perhaps I seemed too compliant. So he felt a bit guilty. "Don't do anything foolish. You'll meet someone who truly loves you." I said, okay. He finally sensed something was off and angrily asked, "Where are you? What are you doing?" A hand that was igniting flames on my body took away the phone. Richard's voice was both seductive and roguish. "You're right. She will meet someone who truly loves her. It's late. Big brother better not disturb us," he said, lowering his head to kiss my neck, his actions becoming increasingly bold. "After all, we're very busy." Chapter 1. As night fell, the luxurious lights in the banquet hall intertwined splendidly. Media and business elites gathered to witness Hugh and me at our engagement ceremony. Miriam appeared gracefully in a white fishtail evening gown, as if she were the main character tonight. The media's cameras shifted from Hugh and me to this popular actress. Miriam slowly approached us, her voice charming and gentle. "Sister, I'll leave Hugh to you. Take good care of him from now on. She is my stepsister and also the unforgettable first love in Hugh's heart." I responded with a dignified smile. My fiancé, however, looked at her as if his soul had been stolen, his eyes fixed intently on her. The awkward situation was finally broken when a long-lost figure appeared. Richard swaggered into the banquet hall under everyone's gaze, smiling both roguishly and aristocratically. Looking back, the emotional entanglements among the four of us extended from high school to university. It all ended when I broke up with Richard, and Miriam accompanied him to study abroad. After 6 years apart, reuniting felt like a battlefield. Miriam, ever the professional, never missed a chance to make headlines. Her gaze instantly shifted from Hugh to Richard. She intimately walked up and took his arm, her tone coy and ambiguous. "You're wearing this tie? It matches the color of my dress." They once again became the focus of the entire scene. Richard's tie was the same color as Miriam's evening gown. Everyone felt like they were being shown off too. At this moment, Hugh's attention had turned to Richard. A few years ago, the He couple died in a car accident, entrusting their company entirely to their adopted son, Hugh. Since the announcement of our engagement, the media had speculated that Richard's return was not to attend his brother's wedding but to reclaim the He family's enterprise. Hugh pretended to be affectionate, wrapping his arm around my waist, his face beaming with the smile of a victor. "Brother, Sunny will be your sister-in-law from now on. I suppose I don't need to introduce her further." Richard's gaze swept coldly over the engagement ring on my hand. With an evil smile, he scratched his nose, a habitual little gesture of his. Compared to 6 years ago, although he had become more mature and steady, he still exuded a roguish charm. Just an engagement. Even marriages can end in divorce. Why rush to declare sovereignty? Big brother? After speaking, his gaze turned to Miriam. Though he was smiling, his words were a slap in the face. "This tie was chosen by my assistant. You and I are just classmates." With that, he loosened his tie and casually tossed it aside. That night's trending topics. #Miriam and Richard couple outfit. #Richard clarifies relationship. Chapter 2. At the engagement banquet, Miriam got dead drunk. After it ended, Hugh said he would first take Miriam to the hotel to rest and let me go home alone. Watching Miriam tightly clutching Hugh's lapel as he carefully placed her into the car, I obediently said, "Okay." As the car's taillights disappeared from sight, I stood in the cold wind for a long time. Suddenly, a suit jacket was draped over me. I looked up to meet Richard's gaze. I seemed to see the young man from before again. His parents had died in a car accident, and I had broken up with him. Under the plane tree on that snowy night, he looked at me just like now, his eyes burning like a wounded little wolf. "Sunny, please don't break up with me. What did I do wrong? I can change. Please don't leave me." "Richard, stop pestering me. I don't love you anymore." After saying this cruel sentence, I resolutely shook him off. From that day on, Richard disappeared from my world. I heard that over the past few years abroad, he established his own business. Now, even without relying on the He family's influence, He's strong enough to rival Hugh. Unexpectedly, when we met again, it was him attending my engagement banquet with his brother. Ironically, he witnessed me being ruthlessly abandoned, just as I had done to him back then. Sure enough, fate's boomerang punishes every heartless person. He must think I've gotten my comeuppance, and I waited for his sarcastic ridicule, but he merely pulled me into his car and pressed me against the seat. Chapter 3. Richard held my waist dominantly. Do you regret choosing him? I wanted to explain to him but felt it was meaningless. I responded coldly. If you're not here to mock me, please take me home. The car started and sped into the night. His car's Bluetooth speakers automatically played that familiar song. Summer to spring, autumn to winter, evening drum to morning bell, dark to light, pale to rich, the wise to the average, clouds to rain, snow to wind, evening glow to clear skies. In our freshman year, he used the song to confess his love to me. I could never forget that boy in a white shirt, singing the ballad of clear skies, looking at me with deep affection as he walked toward me step by step. A ringing phone pulled me out of my memories. My mother was shouting angrily on the other end. Sonny Lou, didn't I tell you not to provoke Miriam? She called me crying, saying you stole her boyfriend. You're already engaged. Why are you still acting so shamelessly? Do you have any sense of decency? Mr. Yi is ignoring me because of this. From now on, before she could finish, I hung up, looking out the window. A sourness welled up in my eyes, and everything became a blur. After my father passed away, I always felt sorry for my mother raising me alone. Later, she married Miriam's father, and I wanted her to be happier. So I tried hard to be an obedient child, dared not defy her, and did my best to please my stepfather. But somewhere along the way, that motherly love changed, gradually becoming a weapon she used to threaten and manipulate me. The car suddenly stopped, just as I was about to get out. I realized this wasn't my home. In the next moment, Richard suddenly pulled me into his embrace. I fell onto his lap, the scent of sandalwood from his body enveloping me. I was stunned for a moment and instinctively tried to pull away, but his strong arms held me firmly. Sorry, did I cause you to get scolded? His deep voice carried a hint of apology, but I only felt mocked. I hadn't expected that within one day Richard would see me in such a miserable state twice. I bit my lower lip hard, trying to suppress the humiliation with pain, but tears welled up in my eyes. Richard's gaze darkened. He cupped the back of my head and kissed me. An unfamiliar yet familiar scent filled my senses. I froze, and tears fell drop by drop. 6 years ago, he was just like this. Whenever I wanted to cry, he would hold me and kiss me endlessly. Only when I was out of breath and couldn't cry anymore would he let me go. The kiss after 6 years was passionate and full of possessiveness. I gasped in pain, and he reluctantly pulled away from my lips. What's the use of crying? If you feel wronged, you should repay them in kind. His voice teased at my ear, hoarse with rising desire. Sonny, I don't mind if you use me. Chapter 4. Richard took me back to his place. As soon as we entered, the familiar scent of sandalwood filled the air. I had once told him that I loved the scent on him the most, even becoming dependent on it. Suddenly, I realized he had planned all of this. Just as I turned around, Richard pressed me against the wall. He curved his lips into a meaningful smile. Thinking of running now? Too late. My fingernails dug into my palms as I looked up into his deep eyes. You did this on purpose. He leaned close to my face, his hot breath on my neck. So what if I did? Miriam framed you, and my brother cheated on you on your engagement night. Don't you want to get back at them? He didn't let me think, began to kiss my lips dominantly, and carried me with big strides into his bedroom. As my evening gown was removed, I realized my engagement ring was gone. Just as I wanted to get up to look for it, he pressed me down. Sonny, all these years, have you ever thought of me? Before I could answer, Richard sealed my lips with a kiss. But I missed you very much. My heart twisted into a knot. I missed you too, Richard. Thinking about how I knew nothing about him all these years, my heart felt soaked in bitterness, unbearably sour. The man before me was no longer the sincere, impulsive boy from back then. Compared to 6 years ago, Richard's actions were so skillful that they made me uneasy. Sensing my emotions, Richard suppressed his heavy breathing and slowed down. If you're unwilling, it's not too late to leave now. He stopped and began to pull away. At the moment he was getting up, I raised my hands to encircle his waist. Sonny. His husky voice was silenced by my kiss. In Richard's shocked gaze was my desperate, eager embrace. In the long hours that followed, we both seemed completely immersed in the warmth of reunion. Tireless. As dawn broke, I sleepily turned over. A sore pain surged in my waist, suddenly recalling last night's recklessness. I turned to look at the man sleeping soundly beside me, planning to sneak away. Richard's body suddenly moved closer. His warm hand covered my waist, subconsciously massaging it. I had to admit, I was very much craving his embrace at this moment. Watching him sleep, my fingers lightly traced the bridge of his nose, and an uncontrollable warmth surged in my heart. But reason told me I shouldn't indulge. I had more important things to do. Chapter 5. After returning home, I dialed Hugh's number. When he answered, he deliberately lowered his voice. Sonny. I was busy preparing for the engagement ceremony yesterday. Don't you know I'm tired? Why are you calling so early? Then, I could vaguely hear a soft, alluring voice on the other end. Brother Hugh. Hug me. I let out a cold laugh and said indifferently, if you don't want your scandal with Miriam to go public, come back immediately. After speaking, I hung up and sent him a photo. The photo captured Hugh and Miriam disheveled, passionately kissing in the car last night. I had anticipated that this day would come when Miriam returned, so I had installed a hidden camera in Hugh's car, connected via Bluetooth to my phone. When Hugh rushed back, I was leisurely having breakfast. He angrily swept all the dishes onto the floor and stepped forward to grab me by the neck. Sonny, I really underestimated you. You dared to scheme against me? I laughed coldly and questioned him. Scheme? Hugh. Did I force your head to kiss Miriam? Or did I unbuckle your belt and send you to her bed? Hugh's eyebrows shot up, and he suddenly released his grip. You're upset just because I slept with her? Sonny, actually, I do care about you. As he leaned in closer, the scent of Miriam's perfume wafted over. A surge of nausea hit me, and I abruptly raised my knee to strike him hard in the lower abdomen. Hugh groaned, clutching his stomach as he staggered back a few steps, his face turning pale. Looking down at him, I said, if you don't want your scandal to hit the front page and cause Buy Group's stock price to plummet, you'd better give me that $5 billion contract for the Northern District before I get to the company. Hugh's face darkened as he glared at me through gritted teeth. Sonny, well played. If it weren't for me back then, do you think your stepfather would have agreed to let you into E Enterprises? And now you dare to threaten me. Do you think that just because Richard has returned successful, he can shield you? I ignored him, threw the Northern District contract in his face, and turned to leave for work. My phone chimed with a few notifications. I opened them to check. My mother had sent several photos of herself posing, ready to slit her wrists, threatening me to issue a public apology to Miriam. Scrolling up, I saw messages from Richard. You heartless girl. You ran off after sleeping with me. He sent me a crying emoji. Why aren't you replying to my messages? Were you dissatisfied with last night? I didn't reply. Then, I sent the intimate photos of Miriam and Hugh to my mother. After that, I blocked her contact. Chapter 6. When I arrived at the company, my stepfather slapped me hard as soon as he saw me. Fortunately, I was quick and pulled Miriam, who was smugly watching with her arms crossed, in front of me as a shield. Miriam was stunned by the sudden slap. My stepfather hurried to comfort her while pointing at me and cursing. You ungrateful wretch. I provided for your education. You ate my food and drank my water. And you dare to steal my daughter's boyfriend. Get out! From now on, stay away from our E Enterprises. I smiled slightly. Boyfriend? That's just Miriam's wishful thinking. Before his next slap could land, his secretary rushed over and whispered urgently. Mr. Yi, we've finally secured the Northern District contract. But the person in charge is Mr. He. My stepfather and Miriam looked at me in shock. Their arrogant demeanor instantly deflated. I tidied my messy hair, walked up to my stepfather, and said, If you want to save face, you'd better leave the company and retire. Otherwise, the day I kick you out, you'll just be a mad dog barking nonsense in front of me. After saying that, I left the father and daughter standing there fuming. I went to the restroom to touch up my makeup and then left the company to meet with the project liaison. My assistant led me to the other party's office. Richard was sitting in his chair, fingers interlaced under his chin, calmly meeting my gaze. Sonny doesn't seem surprised at all. I gave a faint smile, resting my hand on his desk and leaning forward. Given what I know about Hugh, he would give me the Northern District project. But not so readily. Richard, thank you. You've been a great help. Richard curled his lips in satisfaction, scratched his nose, a habitual gesture, and stood up from his chair. He walked behind me, placed his large hand over mine on the desk, his chest pressing against me. Is it just a verbal thank you? Afraid he'd get carried away. I hurriedly reminded him. This is the office. He playfully bit my ear in retaliation. From now on, you're not allowed to ignore my messages. Chapter 7. The meeting lasted the entire day. After dinner, Richard said he wanted to take me somewhere. Sitting in his car, I unknowingly fell asleep from exhaustion. When I woke up, I found he had parked outside our university. We walked along the tree-lined path under the plane trees. We both stopped under a street lamp, the very spot where I had broken up with him back then. Richard finally asked the question that had been weighing on his mind. Sonny, why? You said you didn't love me and broke up. Isn't that a lie? My thoughts were suddenly pulled back to our high school days. At that time, Richard was a school bully who only knew how to fight. Hugh, on the other hand, was a model student excellent in both character and academics. As the adopted son of the He family, he lacked a sense of security from a young age. Afraid of being overshadowed by Richard and abandoned, he worked hard to excel. Back then, I had a crush on good students like Hugh, but whenever Miriam mocked me for freeloading at her house and insulted my mother as a shameless woman who threw herself at men, Hugh would only advise me to endure it, then treat Miriam to fried chicken, telling her not to trouble me anymore. When Richard learned about this, he and a few male classmates blocked Miriam on her way home from school. He said he wanted to act on behalf of justice but had his principles, not hitting girls. So he pulled me to his side and let me vent my anger on Miriam as I pleased. Because of Richard, I experienced for the first time the exhilarating feeling of standing up and fighting back. All my life, my mother told me to endure. Hugh told me to endure. But no one ever cared about how I felt. Only that boy protected me wholeheartedly, stubbornly insisting on attending the same university as me. I was completely moved by the line he sang, "Evening glow to clear skies," and willingly gave him my everything. In our junior year of college, my dearest grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, and my mother had no money for her treatment. At the same time, Richard's parents died in a car accident. Everything in the He family was taken over by Hugh. Miriam came to me and said that Richard had given up his opportunity to study abroad because of me. As long as I agreed to break up with him, she would cover all the medical expenses and hire the most authoritative experts to treat my grandmother. I agreed, but half a year after my grandmother's surgery, she still passed away. Miriam also had her father send her abroad to study, and I lost contact with them. Hugh resented Miriam for choosing Richard and hated his parents for favoring Richard. He could only choose to take revenge on me. Knowing about my family situation, he used all means to suppress my stepfather's company. As a result, my mother knelt before me, slitting her wrists to force me to get engaged to Hugh. After explaining everything, Richard held me tightly in his arms, his voice trembling slightly. "Sonny, I'm sorry. It's all my fault for coming back too late." At this moment, tears that had been suppressed for so long welled up in my eyes, silently soaking the man's shirt. Chapter 8. Returning to the room filled with the lingering scent of sandalwood, Richard approached me, gazing into my eyes from an intimate distance. Unconsciously, I lifted my gaze. Our eyes met, and it seemed as if the whole world had come to a standstill. "Sonny, break off the engagement with him and come back to me, okay?" I swallowed and whispered. "Back then, when you went abroad with Miriam, did you too? We were never together. You've been the only woman in my life." He emphasized his words slightly. "Sonny, you need to make up for these 6 empty years in my life. Just that one sentence made my face flush all the way to my neck, and the rational strings in my mind suddenly snapped. All the grievances and longing of 6 years eventually turned into a passionate embrace between us. He held my waist tightly, his once deep voice now filled with desire. "Sonny, I missed you so much. I'm going crazy." At 3 in the morning, Hugh called, his tone icy. "Sonny, let's postpone our wedding for a few days." I replied, Perhaps I seemed too compliant. So he felt a bit guilty. "Don't do anything foolish. I just can't let go of your sister for now." I said, Okay. He finally sensed something was off and asked angrily, "Where are you? What are you doing?" The hand that had been igniting flames on my body took away the phone. Richard's voice was both seductive and roguish. "She's feeling emotional, and I'm taking care of her. It's so late. Big brother, you'd better not disturb us," he said, lowering his head to kiss my neck, his actions becoming increasingly bold. "After all, we're very busy." With that, he hung up the phone. The man leaned close to my ear, his hot breath brushing against my neck. "Call me husband and let me hear it." I let him coax and tease me, but I still kept my eyes tightly shut, gritting my teeth and refusing. In name, I'm still Hugh's fiancé and can't give him a verbal promise. I can't repeat the hurt I caused him 6 years ago. Chapter 9. The project in the Northern District was progressing smoothly, and now many companies wanted to collaborate with Ye Enterprises. Through multiple project achievements, I had gained significant success while creating an atmosphere within the company that reform is imperative. In contrast, my stepfather, the highest-ranking official, appeared out of touch due to his conservatism and inaction. He was inherently incompetent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have needed Hugh back then to revive the company. Now, step by step, I had convinced everyone through my abilities without relying on anyone. I gradually replaced the core members of the company from top to bottom with my own people, completely sidelining my stepfather. At the board meeting, he was formally voted out of his position. Ye Enterprises would henceforth be managed by me and officially renamed Ye Enterprises. When Hugh came to my office, his expression was extremely unpleasant. "Sonny, you've grown bold. Do you think you can escape my control like this?" I calmly told him, "You were the one who forced me to get engaged to you. I was just going along with it." He stepped forward, gripping my shoulders, and questioned emotionally, "You got engaged to me, pretending affection in front of me, just to completely take over Ye Enterprises? You've been planning this from the beginning, haven't you? Richard abandoned you back then, and I was the one who stayed by your side. Didn't you like me back in high school? But now I can't feel any sincerity from you." Looking at his agitated state, I just felt like laughing. "Hugh, from the very beginning, you used me as a tool to get back at Richard. I was forced by you and only used your power to establish myself in Ye Enterprises. You knew how Miriam treated me since we were young, yet you still got involved with her on our engagement night. Trash like you. Do you think you're worthy of talking to me about sincerity?" I pushed Hugh away, irritably sat back in my chair, and tried to calm my emotions. "For the sake of upcoming collaboration projects, let's pretend to be an engaged couple for a few more days. Once the projects are over, we'll go our separate ways. You can hurry off to find your unforgettable first love." Hugh stood there stunned, letting out a bitter laugh. "Last night, you were with Richard, weren't you?" "Yes. You can pursue your unforgettable first love. Can't I reunite with the love of my life? The sincerity you seek, I gave it to him long ago." Thinking of Richard, those inexplicable uneasy emotions surged in my heart. I couldn't be bothered to look at Hugh any longer. Chapter 10. On the day my stepfather left the company, Miriam called me. She said my mother wasn't feeling well and asked me to hurry back to the Ye family home. As soon as my mother saw me, she sat on the floor hugging my legs, wailing, "You ungrateful girl. If I hadn't had Miriam contact you, I wouldn't have even seen you." I was no stranger to her tactics and asked directly, "Mom, what exactly do you want me to do? Just say it." She wiped her tears and glanced at my stepfather, who was sitting on the sofa smoking a cigar. "Sonny, give the company back to the Ye family, or at least give Miriam a 50% share." I glanced at Miriam, who looked indifferent, and sneered. "On what grounds? when Ye Enterprises was in trouble. I was the one who helped it through the crisis. Why should you and your daughter now enjoy the fruits of my labor? When Miriam bullied me as a child and seduced my fiancé on our engagement night, where were you to stand up for me? If you like being a savior so much, why don't you save your own daughter? As soon as I finished speaking, my mother slapped me with all her strength. My face was slapped to the side, my ears ringing, and the taste of blood filled my mouth. She pointed at my nose, screaming hoarsely, I gave birth to you and raised you, not so you could go against me. I took a deep breath, trying to ease the pain on my face. Yes, you gave birth to me and raised me, an unbreakable blood bond. So, I'm giving you two choices now. Either you leave with me now, and I'll let you enjoy your old age in peace. Or, when the Ye father and daughter kick you out, you can tell me, and I'll come to get you. Other than that, there's no need to contact me anymore. After saying this, I resolutely walked out. Behind me, my mother began slapping herself repeatedly. I told myself not to soften. Repeated compromises would only lead to intensified greedy demands. All my efforts were to break free from the Ye family. My mother is someone willing to sink into the mire. Perhaps being trapped by the Ye family for life is her destiny. I quickened my pace and ran out of the Ye residence. I ran straight into an embrace. Looking up, I saw it was Richard. His gaze fell on my swollen, tear-streaked face, frowning. He was about to rush into the Ye family's door. I hugged his waist, burying my head into his warm chest. Richard, take me away. I want to leave here. The man patted my head, suppressing the anger in his heart. All right, I'll take you away. Chapter 11. Sitting in the car, I cried myself to sleep. I didn't know how long I slept. When I opened my eyes, I saw Richard holding the steering wheel, staring at me. He leaned over. You looked so tired that I didn't have the heart to wake you. A warm palm covered my cheek, and he gently rubbed it. Does it still hurt? Recalling what had happened at the Ye family just now, a surge of irritation rose in my heart. I wrapped my arms around Richard's neck, closed my eyes, and greedily inhaled the sandalwood scent on him. Kiss me, and it won't hurt anymore. The man smiled and casually pulled down the sun visor. He kissed me from my cheek to the corner of my lips, then gradually trailed down along my neck. He reclined the passenger seat. In the quiet car, only the sounds of our heavy breathing could be heard. Sonny, if I hadn't come back, would you really have married my brother? Richard's hot palm rubbed my waist repeatedly, as if he would mercilessly break me if I said I would. I propped my hands against his chest, gazing at him anxiously yet firmly. No, everything was under my control. I knew you would come back, but I didn't expect that instead of revenge, it would be an outpouring of longing that penetrated my bones. Richard, that night, it wasn't you who seduced me. I set up the trap myself. These years, I've missed you too. In the dark night, all those restless emotions turned into an endless stream of flowing water, releasing endlessly. When I woke up early the next morning, Richard had already left. He left breakfast on the table. I ate while habitually scrolling through my phone. On the trending topics, there was a news item marked with a red-hot tag. Hashtag popular actress Miriam pregnant. Before I had time to click in, Hugh called. Sonny, do you have to be so ruthless? What good does ruining Miriam do for you? Chapter 12. My breakfast suddenly lost its flavor. At that moment, I wanted to stab the knife and fork in my hands into the phone screen. Hugh, you're the one who got someone pregnant. Why are you taking it out on me? Is your brain filled with lead? I hung up the phone and knocked on my head, thinking back to when I had a crush on Hugh in high school. I should have poked my own eyes out. All day, the trending topics were filled with photos of Miriam going to a private hospital for prenatal checkups. The man accompanying her wore a baseball cap and mask, but the media still exposed him. By evening, new trending topics appeared. Hashtag Richard the Jerk. Hashtag Miriam. In the comments section, all were sympathizing with Miriam and cursing Richard. That jerk slept with my goddess and won't take responsibility. Woo-woo. My poor Miriam. My heart aches for my baby. I left a comment under the trending topic. Don't judge without knowing the whole story. Just with that one sentence, my private messages were instantly flooded by Miriam's irrational fans. Looking at the endless stream of abusive messages popping up on my phone, I experienced for the first time what online harassment is. Richard sent me a message. "Sonny, turn off your phone. Don't look. I'll handle it." Suddenly, I recalled that in high school, when Hugh deliberately slashed Richard's basketball jersey with a knife. Richard covered my eyes, turned me around, and said a familiar phrase. "Sonny, boys are fighting. Don't look. I'll handle it." Richard is still the person who, no matter what happens, silently bears everything himself. And Hugh, he hasn't changed either. He asked to meet me at a cafe. From his expression, I could no longer see the irritability from this morning. Instead, he seemed somewhat smug. "Sonny, now that Richard's reputation is ruined, you have no other choice. Marry me," I replied. "It seems the trending topics slandering Richard were arranged by you." "What about Miriam?" Hugh said. "How can the lady of my group be an unknown actress? She's only fit for a fling with me. The position of CEO's wife is, of course, for you. I'll give you the most dignified life. As for you, be sensible. Don't interfere with my fun. Do what you should do, and I'll give you any project you want." I couldn't bear it any longer. I picked up the coffee and splashed it fiercely onto his face. His expensive suit was splattered with coffee. Hugh cursed loudly at my departing back. "Sonny, you ungrateful woman. Don't come crying to me later." Chapter 13. Richard publicly revealed his social media account. Evening glows to clear skies. Even I had never seen this account. It had been recording since high school, with only about 100 posts. Many of them were our photos, revealing a lot. "Big brother and I are family. Why does he always like to bully me? Need to protect silly Sonny. She gets bullied by her sister just like me. Miriam seems crazy. I told her I have a girlfriend, so why does she still cling to me? Sonny is angry. She's ignoring me. Can't even focus on playing basketball. Damn." To coax her, I'll sing Ballad of Clear Skies. Really love kissing her. The pinned post was a vlog from Richard, posted on the day he went abroad. "That little girl might stay angry for a long time this time. I'll go abroad to cool off first. As a man, I need to focus on my career. But I, Richard, will always belong to Sonny. No one can take me away from her." In Richard's voice, there was undisguised choking. His eyes were red, speaking in the most carefree tone about the hardest things to let go. Onlookers were somewhat confused. Miriam's fans were speechless. Many people started mocking her for backfiring while trying to gain attention. Richard's followers skyrocketed. Some even established a Clear Skies couple super topic for us. My account was also dug up. Some of Miriam's fans even switched sides to support me. The whole internet was buzzing. I admit I was biased against Richard before. Now, please, Clear Skies couple, reconcile on the spot. Richard is so pitiful. Why does his big brother bully him? Richard is so devoted. His singing of Ballad of Clear Skies is so good. Ah, Miriam knew he was taken but still got involved. Trying to cling to my brother. Whose child is it anyway? Ugh. Miriam is a habitual clout chaser. Even bullies her sister. What kind of person is she? By the way, the Clear Skies couple is so shippable. Sonny is so beautiful. Richard is so handsome, a perfect match. The dog man who got Miriam pregnant. Show yourself. Mani Padme hum. This incident brewed online for a long time. Richard's reputation reversed. His career was not affected in the slightest. Instead, his company's stock price soared. Miriam began to disappear from the public eye. People speculated that she was either recovering from an abortion or had gone abroad to have the baby. Hugh, meanwhile, continued to lurk in the shadows, urging me daily to marry him. Chapter 14. After the successful completion of the project between He Group and By Group, I officially announced on that day the dissolution of my engagement with Hugh. I also posted online the photo of Hugh and Miriam kissing, along with an audio recording. The trending topics slandering Richard were arranged by you. What about Miriam? How can the lady of By Group be an unknown actress? She's only fit for a fling with me. Hugh was publicly shamed. Netizens began to furiously curse and attack him. By Group's stock price plummeted. Every day, reporters and Miriam's die-hard fans surrounded his company's entrance. I heard that one day, as soon as he arrived at the company gate. Someone threw rotten eggs at him and splashed him with dirty mop water. Since then, he never dared to go to the company again. I took the opportunity to snatch many major projects that were originally going to collaborate with by group. Richard called me. His tones sounded like a pitiful puppy. "Sonny, can you come pick me up? I want to see you. Right now." "Sure. Where are you?" "At the police station." Since the death of the He couple, Richard had been investigating the cause of his parents' car accident. He had secretly kept the damaged car and found surveillance footage showing that Hugh had cut the brake lines. Richard took the evidence to the police station and reported it. Hugh was arrested for investigation. By Group went bankrupt and was liquidated. Hugh would spend the rest of his life in prison. After leaving the police station, I hugged Richard. "You had collected this evidence long ago. Why did you wait until now to bring Hugh to justice?" "It was all because of me, wasn't it?" I could feel Richard's long-suppressed emotions being released in an instant. He stroked my head, his voice hoarse. "Sonny, I didn't want you to suffer any harm. I knew you needed time. You needed to establish yourself firmly in Ye Enterprises. You needed a legitimate reason to break off the engagement with Hugh. I didn't want you to bear the stigma of having a fiancé who was a murderer. Only when you had no ties with him, and this matter couldn't implicate you, could I act against Hugh." An indescribable emotion surged in my heart. I could only hold him tightly and softly say, "I'm sorry." Chapter 15. With this apology, what repaid Richard was the ring on my ring finger. He is a man who keeps his word. Indeed, he bought an even more expensive diamond ring with a bigger diamond. I felt it was too extravagant and inconvenient to wear. He said he deliberately chose the heaviest one so that I would always wear it with a sense of guilt and never be able to leave him. Later, Miriam came to the company to find me. She had an abortion and seemed to have recovered physically. In front of the company employees, she cursed me for being ungrateful, said I stole her family's company, and accused me of having a foot in two boats. Until she saw the sparkling ring on my hand, she broke down and cried, "Sonny, why? I'm clearly better than you in every way. Why doesn't Richard choose me? Even Hugh was playing me. I even had his child. Yet the person he wants to marry is still you." Looking at Miriam, whose jealousy had twisted her features, I completely lost patience. Grabbing her collar, I slapped her twice. "Miriam, you're the one who walked yourself into a dead end. You can't blame others. You shouldn't have been so delusional as to follow Richard abroad in the first place. Scum like Hugh is the perfect match for you. Who would want him?" Miriam stared at me with wide eyes, disbelief written all over her face. Just then, the police arrived. She grabbed the officer's arm like a drowning person clutching at straws, covering her face and crying, "This woman hit me. Arrest her quickly. I want to sue her." A pair of handcuffs clicked onto Miriam's wrists. She was arrested on charges of tax evasion and fraud involving amounts up to 100 million. Richard said that my stepfather had sold all his valuable possessions to help Miriam pay back taxes. On the day I was trying on wedding dresses, my mother called, crying and asking me to help Miriam. Otherwise, my stepfather would divorce her. I told my mother that was just as well. After the divorce, she could live with me. My mother cursed me as an ungrateful wretch and angrily hung up the phone. I turned to Richard and shrugged. "See? I still can't save someone who's blinded by love. I can never wake someone who's pretending to sleep." Richard gazed intently at me in the wedding dress, stepped forward, and wrapped his arms around my waist. "I'm also love-struck, but only for you." I couldn't help but smile, kissing his lips. "Then how about giving this love-struck person a reward?" Richard asked. "What reward?" I stood on tiptoe and whispered softly in his ear. "Husband, Sonny, you're in trouble now. How dare you seduce me? Come home with me now. I need to properly deal with you."